I see the island as with a completely different set of eyes to the ones that I saw through when I was young.
Welcome to Island Influencers, where we share stories of successful business owners, experienced professionals, entrepreneurs, and community leaders based or with influence in the Isle of Man. This podcast is brought to you by Thornton Chartered Financial Planners, because great financial planning has the power to change your life. Now here's your host, Sharon Sutton.
In this latest episode, I'm excited to welcome Island influencer Caroline Kinley-Smith, an extraordinary force in criminology, forensic science, and investigative security. Caroline is committed to leveraging her diverse experiences to enrich society. She brings a wealth of expertise from her extensive career operating at the highest levels in both investigative and intelligence capacities. Originally from the Isle of Man, Caroline returned from the UK in 2021 after a distinguished career that included heading corporate security and investigations at the BBC and leading the Royal Protection Command Team within the Metropolitan Police Service. Her roles have ranged from safeguarding the British royal family to spearheading teams assessing threats to high-profile figures. Currently, Caroline shares her wealth of knowledge as a lecturer at University College Man, where she teaches Forensic Science and Criminology. Her dedication to empowering students with industry insights promises to inspire future generations of professionals. Caroline's academic achievements are remarkable, especially as she admits she wasn't academically inclined during her school years. She earned a distinction in an MSc in Legal and Criminological Psychology from Cumbria University. Her dissertation, which has recently been published and focuses on the experiences of policewomen navigating menopause, underscores her strong advocacy for women's support and resilience in demanding professional settings. I hope you enjoy exploring Caroline's impactful career, insights and vision for a more inclusive and supportive society as I did. Here is episode 111 with Island influencer Caroline Kinley-Smith. Welcome to this week's episode of Island Influencers, and my guest in the studio joining me is Caroline Kinley-Smith, whose his journey to the studio today is quite circuitous, really, and that I believe you were born and grew up in the Isle of Man, Caroline.
So I was born in the Jane Crookall in Douglas, and I was brought up in Port St Mary, and in 1985 I left the island. I actually have to say I couldn't wait to spread my wings and get away, partly because I felt that everybody knew me, because my father was Vernon Kinley, captain on the steam packet, my mum was a teacher.
Wow.
And they were very well known. I felt it was quite claustrophobic. I went to Castle Rushen High School. My journey through Castle Rushen High School was not particularly illustrious, it has to be said. It just wasn't really my time for learning, and I didn't do terribly well. But I would say that's probably because I wasn't interested.
Right, you hadn't found your mojo, really.
No,
yeah.
And so I thought, how am I going to get away, support myself, do something really interesting and exciting? Oh, I know what I'll do. I'll join the Metropolitan Police. So I did. So
how did you go about that?
I applied.
Was there like a careers evening or something?
No. I just thought, no, I quite fancy that. And it was really a means of, it would give me somewhere to live, because I knew I'd have to go to training college, and it would give me a wage. So I applied, but there was a moratorium on actually recruitment at that time, so I had to wait a couple of years, knowing that I was going to go into the Metropolitan Police. So I went into the civil service.
Okay, so how did you go about that?
I just applied as you do, and I ended up in the tax office as a clerical officer, and just as I was getting to the end of my probation, I got the call up for the Metropolitan Police. So I can remember getting the letter telling me that were congratulating me for finishing my probation, and then the letter saying something along the lines of, but I hear it's academic because you're going into the police, good luck in your future career. And that was it. In 1985 I left. The dad took me to Hendon and left me at the Peel statue. And then I set about getting used to living in a tower block. in Hendon.
Oh my
It was
goodness.
a shock to the system.
From going from a house in Portsmouth Mary to
I didn't look back
to London.
Didn't look back.
Yeah,
but it was quite. Really, being at training school was quite gruesome. I was one of very few policewomen that were there.
Tell me there was separate barracks now.
No,
right?
No, we were all living in blocks.
Yeah,
and I just had the most wonderful time, Sharon. I didn't really know just how much of a good choice that was that I'd made. I just landed on my feet. I really started to apply myself to all the exams and all the stuff that we had to do academically in the police. And I thought, because I got it, I could see the goal.
Yeah.
And so I just got on with it. And then things went on from there. I did lots more exams. The only reason I chose Hounslow, which is my first division, was because it was near Heathrow Airport. So there was no science to it at all. I just thought I need to go home to the Isle of Man. So I was at training school with Martin Bayfield, who people might remember as an international rugby player, 6'10", also played Hagrid in the Harry Potter films.
Oh, he does the double for Robbie Coltrane.
He does. So he was one of my beat partners walking along Hounslow High Street.
I suppose if you saw people walking towards you, they'd just move out of the way for somebody that size.
Well, they did, and I used to say to Martin, you don't need to say anything. You're the brawn, I'm the brains, I'll do the talking.
And it worked well, did it?
And it did work really well. We had such a laugh. He was a really funny guy. And he didn't stay in the police for very long, so he went on to other things. But it was brilliant. And, you know, when I think back now, I got on as well as I did because I had a really well-developed sense of humour, and it's gotten wilder as I've got older. But I could always see the funny side in me. I got on some right old scrapes.
Do tell.
Well, I can remember this is quite early on. We all went into our parade, had a parade every morning at Hounslow, as in every police station you do, and you have to make sure you got your truncheon in your hand, and this little truncheon that the ladies had in their handbag, and I had my set of handcuffs, my notebook, my whistle, all of these things you had to present to the sergeant. It was very old-fashioned.
No body cams and stuff.
No body cams in those days. No sprays.
No.
And I remember the sergeant saying, right, Kinley, you're going to this particular, it was an estate on Hounslow's ground, which was quite notorious, and we need you to go and arrest this man on a bench warrant because he's failed to turn up at Isleworth Crown Court. So I thought, right, okay. And then he mentioned the name, so the rest of the team all started sniggering because the bench warrant was for GBH. This guy was huge and known to be quite violent, obviously. And they sent me off to arrest this person. And the sergeant said, I'm only joking. And I said, no, Sarge, you've asked me to do it, and I would do it. So off I went in the Panda car, being driven by this older PC. And he got out of the car with me in the basement of this tower block and said, right, come on then. And I said, no, it's my job. I've got to go and do this. And this was all about gaining credibility, I suppose, when I look back now. So I went, and he said, are you sure? And I said, yeah. So I went up in the lift to the 19th floor. I walked along the corridor, which I have to say did not smell particularly great. Yeah. I had Blakey's on the bottom of my shoes, which are those tappy things that are meant to give you some, I don't know exactly what they are, an affectation.
Height and authority.
Height, yes, something like that. And I walked along to the door. And I'm actually swallowing just thinking about it now. I knocked on the door, and this huge man came, and all I remember really is seeing the light over his shoulders. I looked into the flat, and then he said something like, what do you want, although not quite as politely as that. And I said, I've come to arrest you on a bench warrant because you failed to turn up at Isleworth Crown Court. And then I smiled at him, and he just started laughing. So I started laughing, and I said to him, you are going to be coming with me. And he said, yeah, right. And I think he just thought, I don't know what he thought. And so then I had to put handcuffs on him, and And he said, actually, I can't believe I'm agreeing to do this. And I said, well, you know as well as I do that there's a lot of people downstairs, and if you don't come with me, you'll have to come anyway. They'll all pile up. And I said, I just would rather we do this quietly and sensibly. And he said, yeah. And I just learned that I can deal with people. If you deal with people in the right way, you can virtually get people to do anything that you need them to do. Yeah. And so he quietly came down the lift. When I got down to the bottom, my team all started to look as if they were going to pile in. And I've said, no, absolutely not. Don't need you. And he said, this guy said to them, she's got it under control. And then we got in the car.
How amazing.
And went back to the police station. Everybody came to hear me giving evidence to the sergeant. But it was just one of those things. I actually thought I might die. When I was going up in the lift, I thought he might throw me out the window.
19th floor, kind of.
Yeah.
Obviously by the fact that you didn't get thrown out of the 19th floor, so that's good.
It was, and
that sort of set the stage for how your future career went. So what happened after that? I mean, how many years were you in Hounslow?
I was in. I must have been about 5 years, because then I decided I wanted to go into the CID.
Right.
And having looked around and thought, I could do that.
What attracted you about becoming a detective?
Because I think the whole thing's really sexy.
That's TV programmes.
I'm very nosy.
Had you had enough of the uniform by now?
No, I didn't really. Well, to be honest, there was so much equipment going on around my belt that I virtually didn't have any more room. Because I was quite slim then as well. Well, I'm still slim-ish now, but I had these utility belts with my handcuffs, all of this stuff. Yeah. And I thought, well, look, the way the police is going, I won't have any more room for all this stuff. And I just didn't really. I just felt as if I wasn't stretching myself enough. So I got into the you have to do a probationary period for CID as well. But when I got made detective constable, I then went to Richmond and Twickenham. Which was lovely.
Right. It is a nice area.
And I suppose what actually set me off on my particular interest in the police, which was sexual offence investigation, was because being one of the few women at Hounslow, there was only 4 of us, I used to be sent out to deal with any rape victims and any other sexual offence victim. And it was there that I started to realise that you need to properly treat and deal with victims of crime in order to get them to be at the best place they can to actually tell you what happened. And I would go to them to do the examination with the doctor. I would then do statements and all of that sort of thing. But I progressed on to thinking I want to do the investigation bit as well. And so I started doing sexual offences training, became a DC. Then I was doing a lot. I suppose my specialism was sexual offence investigation. And I learned so much. And then as I went up through the ranks, I still had that interest, but I was able to share my experience with people coming up behind me.
And how can you speak to the sort of advances that it's, there's still a lot of stigma around the word rape and, the opposite side from saying, well, she asked for it and, that sort of thing. I mean, how has that changed, improved over the years that you've seen?
Well, I recall seeing a television programme that was made by Thames Valley Police. Yeah. That must have been early 80s, where they were accusing the rape victim of lying. Yeah. And I remember that had a massive effect on me. And I think as I matured in the police and went on more training and so on, there was very much a shift from they were encouraging us to ensure that we made the victim feel valued and believed. In fact, we were actually told we will believe the victim. Now, to me, that there was a bit of a problem with that, because the victim may not be telling the truth. And so I tended to just go with it, listen to what people had to say, and do the very best I could to pull the evidence, all the evidence in. But I used to say to my teams, treat the victim and the suspect as you would treat your own loved ones in these cases, because they may not have done it. And you can be accused of something like rape and really you never shake it off. You never really, I don't think you would ever recover properly and fully from having been accused of something like that if you haven't done it.
Yeah, but then a woman can change her mind, can't she, all the way through
the process. It's very tricky. It's very not straightforward at all.
No.
And that's why I really enjoyed investigating those sorts of crimes, because they're so emotive, so upsetting, but they're so important. It's so important that you are always going to consider what we'd call the null hypothesis, what would have to be in place for that not to have happened. And people, my teams would say to, why are we going to treat the suspect like a brother or a father? And I said, because you're there to find out what the truth is. You're not there to find somebody guilty.
Yeah, you can't prejudge it.
No, it's about just gathering the best evidence you can. And if you're decent and you treat people nicely and decently, they're more likely to respond to you and not be so reticent to tell you what happened. So you need to build trust.
Yeah. Gosh. So what happened after you advanced through the detective constable ranks? You get to detective sergeant?
Yeah, detective sergeant. I had to go into uniform again, because that was what we did then. You had to go into back into uniform as a sergeant. So I did that for about a year, and then I went on to a detective sergeant's board, and was successful there. And then I went to Bramshill Police College on the staff there, and I met the future Mr. Kinley-Smith. Lucky man. And
Indeed.
Yes, and we got married in the tapestry room at Bramshill Police College in Hampshire.
Gosh.
Which actually is no more. It's been sold by the Home Office. And then I got promoted again to detective inspector and went to Ealing Police Station, or Ealing Division.
Yes.
And there I managed, as well as other things, I specialised in Operation Jigsaw, which was managing sex offenders and other high-profile offenders in the community.
Operation Jigsaw is very famous.
It's quite well known.
It is well known, yes, notorious.
Yeah.
Is that the right word for it?
Well, there was Operation Sapphire, which was the Metropolitan Police response to sexual offences, but Operation Jigsaw was about managing offenders, generally sex offenders in the community. And so I had a team doing that, and then went on to be in a central position where I was managing all the teams I was overseeing the operation of all of the teams that were managing sex offenders. So I used to work out with colleagues in what was called MAPA meetings, multi-agency public protection arrangements, which they have over on the island as well. But with colleagues, we'd work out the best work people and the best framework in order to manage somebody, to help them to actually manage their own behaviour.
Yeah.
And so, you would might try and get someone into work, for instance. So you'd have Job Centre Plus in, you'd have mental health in, you'd have the prison service in, who would tell you what sort of prisoner they'd been. We'd have, and obviously the police officers who were managing on a day-to-day basis or week-by-week basis would come. So it was a collaboration of people who would work out with the person who was the perpetrator of the crime, the best way forward to make them lead a better life.
Right.
So we also did things like, I set up something called Circles of Support. Have you heard of Circles of Support?
No, I haven't.
It's that's where members of the community will volunteer to support usually a sex offender And so if the sex offender feels that maybe one of their triggers has been activated and they feel as if they might be thinking about offending again, they'll contact this person to get some support.
So this is somebody who's been to prison and is now in the process of having been rehabilitated to be reintroduced into the community.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Yeah, really valuable job. I actually got some funding from a charity to set some of these circles of support up, and that's because I was in the centre and I was seeing people come from other countries back into the UK. So these are people who'd gone to another country, offended, and never actually not become nationalised in that particular country. So as soon as they came out of prison, they were sent back. It happened with Australia. Actually used to send a few people back.
Gosh.
And so they would arrive back in the UK and they'd have no family, there'd be no support network. They didn't know the UK. And in one case, I remember this guy had gone out when he was 4 to Australia and came back at 54. And so suddenly he's dumped back in the UK and had nobody and nothing. And so we set him up in an area where there was a ready-made circle of support for him. And that worked.
Yeah, and what was the sort of outcome of that? Did you have a good...
Well,
good,
as far as I am aware, there was no reoffending.
And that's
so you
good.
have to hope that you think that feels like
positive.
A success.
It does feel like a success. Yeah, no. Good.
So that was so I'd sort of done the full thing from dealing with victims, investigating suspects, and then dealing with people once they'd actually served their time. Yeah. And I've got a real interest in that.
Right. And so so I take it as you did that, what was the next step in your career? Because I suppose there's a certain point in time that if you want to advance your career, you go and do something else.
Yeah, well, I did. I was doing all the other stuff that a DI would do, so I was managing all the other crimes as well, but that was a particular specialism that I did. So then I applied for my next promotion, which is DCI, Detective Chief Inspector, and I took a job. Quite a few of us had actually got promoted around the same time, and so I was asked to do a job which I would call the Christmas cards and paper clips department. I know. And it wasn't really for me. However, it got me into a DCI position, and it was actually a really important job, but I didn't realise quite how important it was at the time, but it was managing police information. And as we know, the management of information is absolutely crucial and it's massive. So I did that job, but had I not taken that opportunity, I wouldn't have ended up at Royalty Protection, because one of my colleagues, a civilian colleague, police staff, had said, will you come with me to Caroline, will you come with me to this unit? And it was Royalty Protection, because we need to have a look at their databases, because it was unique in that it was a team of psychiatrists and other NHS staff working with police officers to risk assess people who were fixated on members of the royal family and MPs and ministers. Okay. So I went along. I said, I'm always up to help, but I was interested to know what they did there. And so the DCI, the DI at the time, and the DCI were both about to retire. And they said to me, this would be right up your street.
Oh my goodness.
Anyway, I applied for this job and got it. And I had them on. I was exposed to so much and so many people. I actually ended up briefing the Prime Minister at one point, who was Jackie Smith at the time, over the Gary Glitter. I brought Gary Glitter back I dealt with his repatriation to the UK in 2008. And it was fascinating. Psychiatrists are an interesting group of people, but we all worked very well together. It was there was an academic feel to the work, because it was all it's about stalking. But it was people who had a fixation, a particular fixation on royal family, MPs and ministers. So I was in and out of Buckingham Palace quite a lot. Gosh. I had an office at Buckingham Gate. I was also in and out of the Palace of Westminster, because we dealt with MPs as well. So
who did you deal with? The private secretaries mostly, or did you ever get to brief the
we would
the royal
quite
family?
Often I'd be speaking to individuals of the usually with the royal family it would be private secretaries, but with the ministers it would be the ministers themselves.
Oh goodness!
So But it's that absolutely fascinating work that was.
Because there's been a few high-profile MP murders, hasn't there? There was the lady. What was her name?
Jo,
yeah,
Jo Cox, was it?
Jo Cox, yeah.
That was after my time, actually.
Yes.
But that's exactly the sort of thing that me and my team were trying to prevent.
Yeah,
it was to get there. To try and get there before anything like that happened.
Yeah.
But they had quite a terrible time sometimes. But they're putting them, these, people are trying to do a good job for the community. And, there are members of society, I have to say generally there's a mental health issue of some description associated with the behaviours. So, yes, it wasn't just members of... the royal family were the main focus as the Palace of Westminster, but we weren't to deal with people who weren't in those two groups because the Home Office were actually funding us specifically to deal with those people who were in public office or in royal family. But out of that, it was called the Fixated Threat Assessment Centre, but out of that came Stalking Threat Assessment Centre, where people like you and I, if we were being stalked, would be able to go to a specific unit who understood stalking. And the problem is a lot of police officers didn't understand stalking.
Yeah.
It's been quite a... it's far more known about it now after some very high-profile murders.
Yeah, because that's the ultimate aim, isn't it? A mentally ill person's going to stalk someone because they want to kill them.
No, it's not always and that's not always the reason why somebody would do that. Sometimes people are under the impression that they're in a relationship with this person, this object of their desire, and it might be that the partner of the person who is the subject of this person's desire is the one who might be in danger.
I see.
Because the person who's fixated will think, well, they're in the way.
Yeah.
And people don't always see that aspect of it. And it's really important that
scary,
police officers do understand that they need to treat this stuff seriously.
Yeah, goodness. So after that particular episode in your life, which sounds fascinating, by the way, to be able to go in and out of those places in the position of trust that you had there, what happened after that?
I then was in the... I ended up landing on my feet again, actually, because because of circumstances with some other people, I ended up being promoted again. And I was managing all the garden parties, overseeing all the garden parties.
Wow.
And
what's the food like?
Well, I never actually got to taste it. I thought it wasn't I didn't want to be caught on camera
at the end
chomping on a sandwich, a cucumber sandwich. So I did all of that, and I think that must have been 2014. Yeah, because I then left in 2015.
Right.
But I ended up going to Balmoral with the Queen.
Gosh,
and the Royal
beautiful
Court,
place, isn't
absolutely
it?
Stunning. And that's when the Royal Court went to Balmoral. We'd always have a senior officer go with them, but the whole team would move up as well.
Yeah, did you like the bagpipes?
I loved it. I didn't. Where I was staying, I couldn't actually hear the bagpipes, but I used to hear them sometimes if I was up at the castle. But it was absolutely. I used to pinch myself and think, I can't believe I'm here.
Yeah,
it was fantastic. And then I was one of the things that used to. I just can't believe I did this, really. But I, as a senior officer, or in fact anybody who wanted a set, could get a set of antlers, because they used to have a cull of the deer, because there were so many of them.
Yes.
So we'd have, so a set of antlers were presented to me by staff. And I said to them, well, can you take them down to London when you come back at the end of court? And so they did. And then I wrapped them up at the police station at Buckingham Gate and took them home with me on the tube. The tube and the train was packed. And so these little antlers, they were quite big antlers, actually. They were sticking out of the confidential waste sack that I put them in. Oh dear. Anyway, I gave them to my husband for a present for Christmas.
Oh, what did he say?
He was so delighted. And anyway, they're in our house on the wall saying Balmoral 2004, summer 2014. Oh, yeah, he was delighted with them.
That's some keepsake, some memento, isn't it? Poor dear.
Yeah.
Poor dear.
Yeah, no, that's that. But the thing is that they have to do it because
Yeah.
otherwise they eat everything and
Yeah.
there's just they take over.
Yes.
So anyway, I thought it was churlish to refuse, so I said, "Oh, thank you, it's very nice."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
So then once I'd sort of took over the command for a while because the position was vacant, and so that's where I actually retired.
Yeah.
At Royalty Protection, which then brings me on to I was going to be a lady who lunched for a little while.
Yeah.
And got bored after 3 weeks of that, and then was approached by someone who worked for the BBC.
Right.
And then the rest is history.
Yes, you had quite an illustrious career at the BBC. What sort of exciting things did you get up to there?
Well, I was head of corporate security and investigations for the BBC. So so we moved from Surrey up to Worcestershire.
Yep.
Because it was a national job, they wanted me to be in the centre of the country. Mm-hmm. And so it was really because I've been head of the Fixated Threat Assessment Centre, that was of interest to the BBC because of the high-profile people I've got working there. Yeah. I have to say I found the BBC very different from the police, completely different organisation as you'd expect. Yeah. Yes, exciting, met lots of very interesting people. Again, I was lucky.
What was the nicest celebrity you got to meet?
Carol, who's now just got married, Carol Kirkwood, the weather lady. She's absolutely lovely. Never heard anyone say a bad word about her. She always remembered my name. Just lovely. Yeah. There were lots of nice people, but they were very much we're all at work. Yeah. And so, she's lovely. Yeah. Yeah.
It must be a massive task to be able to identify the numbers of visitors you get coming in for like the news programmes and stuff.
Well, we had a big team. I managed the team. The
to say nothing about on location and sports events like the Olympics and all that.
And I was actually in the police for the Olympics.
Right.
Because that was 2012. Yeah. But the BBC, completely different kettle of fish to the police. But again, I look back and think it was such an experience, and it enriched my life.
Yeah,
massively.
I'm sure. Yeah, I suppose different institutions like the police and then the BBC.
But big institutions with their own idiosyncrasies.
How are they different, really?
Well, in the police, I felt very much appreciated for my expertise, what I would deliver. I understood the culture of the police officers. I thoroughly enjoyed the work. When I went into the BBC, I felt as if I was a necessary person to have to put up with in a way, because the BBC is about broadcasting. Yeah. They're focused on broadcasting. Actually, security, yes, we've got to have security, we've got to have investigations, but it's not the most popular.
No, I'm sure.
And focus. So I found that quite difficult because sometimes I felt I wasn't being listened to. Yeah. And I remember saying to somebody once, "Why are you employing me if you're not going to listen to what I'm saying to you, what I'm advising?" But, sometimes you just have to, you can say what you can say, but if you can't actually make the change yourself, then, you've just got to mitigate it as much as you can.
So were you involved in not just functions of security, but also things like HR, whistleblowing, that sort of thing in the BBC?
That part of my investigation team would deal with that as well.
Oh, okay.
So anything where a celebrity might get into trouble or be threatened.
There's been a few of those over the years.
Yeah. We would make sure that they were safe, and we'd bring in security, specialist security, through contacts that I actually already had, because obviously a lot of people had retired from the police around the same time as me as well. So I had the contacts. So it was fascinating.
Any big cases that you worked on at the time that you can mention, or?
So the Me Too movement started when I was there.
Right.
And I actually found that my way of dealing with allegations was not necessarily acceptable to the way that the BBC wanted to deal with them.
Okay.
And so BBC very concerned about the reputation.
Yeah.
Obviously my mind is thinking if criminal acts have taken place, they need to be dealt with. So, yeah, I found that quite challenging, actually.
Okay. I don't say any more then.
No.
Oh, fair enough. So if that started then, is that when you sort of left?
Yeah, I went. I did about 4 years.
Well, if you'd already retired and you didn't really need to.
No, no. Well, by then, you see, I thought I'd do 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
My husband was a magistrate in the UK at that time.
Yeah.
And then the next phase of my life revolved around a bit of academia, and I am no way an academic. Never claimed to be, never really wanted to be, and I had not done terribly badly at school, really.
Yeah, but you did well at police college.
I did. And so my husband and I went to a conference for magistrates, and I met this woman. I'm very good at networking, Sharon. I was in the lift with my dress over my arm for the dinner that night, and I said to this woman who also had a dress, I bet you're going to the same thing that I'm going to. And she said, probably. And so we started chatting, as you do. And so then I told my husband I'd met somebody, and I said, and we're going to go and sit with them at dinner. And he said, how can you? He said, how can you know anyone? We've only been here 10 minutes. Anyway, so we got into the dining room, and all of the people who were on the board of magistrates had to host a table each. And I said, we're going over there to that lady, I know her. And so it was right at the front. And he said, no. I said, no, we're going up there. So we did. We sat down with her. Anyway, the long story short is by the end of the dinner, she'd persuaded me to go to Cumbria University to do a master's degree in Legal and Criminological Psychology.
Wow.
Because she was an academic doctor there.
Oh, I see.
And so I did. She helped me to do my application. They gave me credibility, or my credibility came from my career, not through my qualifications. I must have had the basic. I hadn't obviously done an undergraduate degree.
Let's face it, French O-level isn't going to cut it in that sort of thing, is it?
No, and I didn't get French O-level anyway. I failed it. So I said, I don't think I'm capable of doing a master's degree. And I said, I didn't do an undergraduate degree. And she said, no, but she said, I think you can do this.
Wow.
So I started Legal and Criminological Psychology. And Sharon, I've told everybody this. I got a distinction.
I know, that's amazing. Yeah. I mean, you should be really proud of yourself.
It's one of my proudest moments.
That's amazing.
And it changed me.
Yeah.
It made me think differently. I was so proud of myself. And I then realised I'd had a bit of a chip on my shoulder all that time because I'd had such a negative experience at school. And that had lived with me all that time. And I've always thought to myself, I should have done a degree. But I wouldn't. It wasn't the right time.
No, I feel the same way. Exactly. Yeah. Just did it through my own qualifications. Yeah.
And I thoroughly enjoyed it. I had the best time. It was through COVID, but I did do the first year I was on site, and I had these student colleagues who were so much younger than me, but really respected what I could bring to the table, and they really helped me in the thinking in the way that you need to in order to write stuff.
Amazing.
And so they were so proud of me when I was the only one out of our group who did get a distinction, but I worked so hard.
Well done.
But I ended up helping them too.
Yes.
So and
that's probably part of the reason you did, because you relearnt you learnt it.
Yeah, and I was able to give practical stuff. Bearing in mind it was legal and criminological psychology, and I was so interested. I was fascinated by it, and I got the distinction. I tell everybody that. So pleased with myself. And anyway, that led on to me teaching. I'm doing a PGC. Well, I'm doing a Cert Ed, it's called, in the lifelong learning sector at the nunnery at the moment.
Right. Oh, okay.
Because I love learning, and I felt if they were letting me loose on students at the college, I needed to be able to know something about teaching.
Yeah. So you've come on to that. You at some point you've moved back to the Isle of Man.
Yeah, I moved back. It'll be nearly 3 years ago in this November.
Yes.
So just over
with Mr. Kinley-Smith.
With Mr. Kinley-Smith, yes.
Right. Okay.
And the only place we could both agree to live, because we didn't want to stay in the Midlands particularly, because he'd been brought up there, and he said I never would have chosen to come back to the Midlands, although Worcestershire was lovely. We thought we wanted to be near the sea, and he'd lived over here previously, and so the only place we could both agree on was the Isle of Man. So he came back, and I stayed in the Birmingham area to finish my dissertation. Which was on exploring the experience of policewomen going through working through the menopause.
Okay.
And so he came back, chose our house.
Yeah.
And I did the negotiations on it, and so came back and settled, and actually Cumbria had said to me, Cumbria University had asked me, was I interested in doing some lecturing for them, but having then spent a few months here during the winter, I thought I can't guarantee to get there.
Sure.
Because of the sailings and the weather and all of that.
Flights, sometimes.
And flights,
yes.
So, but it sparked a thought, and I was thinking, I wonder if there's anything happening at the UCM which might be that I could contribute to. And so I rang this lady called Karen Davis, just looked her up online, and she said, this is very fortuitous. And literally, I'd just finished the degree.
It's landing on your feet again.
And I went for the interview was quite searching. Had to give a presentation, and I got a job, and I am thoroughly enjoying being with more young people, and hopefully bringing alive some of the teaching, bringing it into real life.
Yeah.
And I've got a modest group of, I've only got 4 students, but I think that next year there's going to be more, and I've thoroughly enjoyed it.
Well, I guess it'll take a while for the reputation of the course to build.
Well, that's been going a little while, I think, but they're actually intending to. It's in development at the moment to deliver an applied social sciences degree, of which there will be a criminology section.
Right, okay.
I can't remember what the other 2 are now.
Yes. But, so a higher level than you're teaching now.
It'll be an undergraduate degree. Okay. And that's what I'm hoping to be able to go on to next.
Right, okay. Well, that's fascinating. Yeah. And answer the last thing I was going to ask you, but it's okay. Yeah. Oh no, wonderful. So I believe you've also been doing some work for government as well, as an external investigator. So how's that been?
That's absolutely fascinating as well, because I go into lots of different departments. Yeah. And I investigate things like fairness at work, potential whistleblowing, right. Maybe a bit of discipline, that sort of thing. And I have met some fantastic people. I find, for me, I just think it couldn't be better, because I'm getting a real understanding of, like, for instance, what one department will do, then I move on to another department and another department, so I have to get an understanding of what happens.
And are you trying to bring them together in a more of a repeatable, scalable kind of process? I mean, from what you said, it sounds like there might be different procedures in one to another, or are they all the same? Well,
the process for fairness at work, that would be the same. Yeah. It's about trying to get to the bottom of why staff are unhappy, right? Okay. And or why managers aren't happy with particular staff. Right. I think communication is the key to everything.
Definitely. And poor communication is usually the cause of it, in my experience.
I would say so. Mm. But I'm experienced as an investigator, and I absolutely committed to doing the best job I can. Yeah. And I find that people, fortunately for me, they trust me, and people will tell me things, and I will do the best job I can with that. Sure. So to bring a good outcome.
That's amazing. Oh, thank you for sharing all that. That's sounds like you've got a lot of work on.
Yeah, I have. Probably more than I could probably work more, but I want to keep the academic stuff going as well.
Yeah, you have to have something that's for you as well, some purpose. Yeah, absolutely. So, if you don't mind me asking, and I always ask this because my day job is as a financial planner. So, for you, growing up in the Isle of Man in Portsmouth area, what's your earliest memories of money? I mean, how for you, how was money growing up?
I think we were very comfortable. I remember my mum had quite a hard time when her father died quite young, and the mum had to take in guests, I think, to make ends meet.
Gosh.
That was in Portsmouth Mary.
Yeah.
And so she'd always instilled in me and my sister to really try to get yourself to a position where you can support yourself.
Yeah.
So she was very much into having your own career, being able to stand on your own 2 feet.
Yeah.
But she was quite careful with money. So, and it's made me, I tend to, I'm a saver rather than a spender, but when I spend, I love it.
Well, tell me all. As long as it's something that's really good and you really want.
If I really want something. And I think that it's lovely to be able to do that.
Yeah, well, I think your mum would have been pretty proud of you, the fact that you made sure you had a job to go to support yourself before you actually just left the Isle of Man. I mean, that was mature and sensible at that age.
I'm sad, Sharon, that they never saw what I did.
Oh, dear.
With them dying 91 and 98 respectively.
Oh, they're watching you, I'm sure.
I hope so.
Yeah.
But I can't. I've had the best time, and I continue to do so. Hopefully.
Yeah, that's lovely.
Yeah.
So, if I was to ask you to define what being rich or wealthy means to you, what would you say?
Being happy, and trusted, and to be in a relationship that's completely supportive. My husband has been absolutely fantastic. He's very much got a military background and a policing background. He's pushed me and supported me to reach the level that I did. He was being absolutely devoted to supporting me, and we're very much a team. It was very annoying sometimes, don't get me wrong, Sharon. However, I've been so supported by him.
That's lovely.
And some of the skills he's got have been excellent for helping me in applications for things and preparing for interviews.
Sounds like a great partner. Somebody who's on your side.
Totally on my side.
Yeah, wonderful. And of all the things you've done throughout your life then so far, what's given you the most fulfilment?
Getting that degree.
Yeah, but that... What, with a distinction?
Yeah. Did I mention I had a distinction?
No. That's amazing.
Yeah. It was like a light bulb moment for me.
Yeah.
It made me more confident at 58.
Brilliant.
And it was one of the highlights. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's really lovely. What would be your number one tip to achieve fulfilment and success in what you're doing?
To nurture any team that you have around you and trust them, value them, talk to them and care for them. And that sounds maybe it sounds a little bit twee, but I've been blessed with amazing teams and you can't work without them. And so I would say to anybody, value the people and the skills around you.
And how would you go about doing that? How would you show them that you value them?
Having compassion, listening, finding out about them, because life is not all about work, caring for people, helping them when you can, being thoroughly decent, being consistent, and sharing. Bringing people with you, inspiring people so they want to come with you.
So I see from reading about you, at one point you were in control of leading a team of about 600 or something. Yeah, that's it sounds like you're pretty good at it.
I hope so. But I've got things wrong. I know I've not done some things well, but I think as long as you can learn from those experiences, I think...
No, it's a good one. And if you could go back and give your 18-year-old self one piece of advice, what would it be?
Stop worrying. Try not to worry about stuff that you actually can't affect. Because I would tend to think ahead a lot and try and put all the pieces in place. Yeah. And you just can't control everything.
No.
And I like to feel that I'm in control. So I would say stop worrying. And I would say to my 18-year-old self now, on some of those opportunities that you had, that you didn't necessarily think you were ready for, you should have taken them. And I think that's a bit of a female trait.
Yeah.
I think women tend to think, well, I'm maybe not ready for that yet. But then you see male colleagues who think, oh, I'm ready, I'm up for that, I'll give it a go.
Yeah.
And it's like they've got this confidence to have a crack at something. And if I had my time again, I would do that. I would say, yeah, I'll have that, thanks. Yeah.
Yeah, I did see something somewhere. And it said, if a woman can see a job description and they can do 2/3 of it, they won't apply on the basis that they can't do a third.
Yeah.
If a male counterpart sees it and can do a third of it, they'll apply anyway just to throw their hat in the rings.
Yeah. And that's the difference between men and women. So I would say, give
Come
it a
on,
go.
girls, have confidence.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely. And how do you relax? How do you keep your life in balance?
Well, I do. I'm doing open water swimming.
Brave woman.
Ramsey. I love cooking. I've been on a number of cookery courses.
What sort of cookery?
Just about everything. I went to the Ashburton Cookery School in Devon. I've been to Rick Stein's recently to do seafood and fish and seafood.
Wow.
I designed our kitchen so that it's exactly what I want, and we love entertaining. Love it. So that's what I do. I'm very focused. You come round. I'm very focused on food, and when I'm cooking, it's the only thing I'm concentrating on, and that's good for me because I find it quite hard to relax, actually.
Know the feeling. Okay, and what was a favourite trip you ever took?
Most favourite trip? Do you know, I've done quite a lot of travelling through my jobs, and I have to say now that travelling doesn't really do it for me. It's not something that I feel as if I need to do. I don't feel as if I need to go anywhere particularly. But places I've been to, I suppose, I actually love going to Dubai. Right. Because I go and I just relax straight away. And I love
and why is that, do you think?
I think because it's so luxurious, you're guaranteed the weather. Yeah. And I just making myself do nothing is what I need sometimes. And I haven't been for a few years, but I love that. And I love the warmth. Okay. And I just...
That's something for your to-do list.
Yeah.
Book a trip.
Yeah.
And tell me about the best thing living on the Isle of Man for you.
I see the island as with a completely different set of eyes to the ones that I saw through when I was young.
You wanted to escape from.
I wanted to escape from. When I drive over the mountain road in the morning and it's sunny, I think I couldn't wish to be anywhere else. It's beautiful. I think that I feel very secure here. I actually like bumping into people that I know. Whereas London is terribly anonymous, and I thought I would prefer the anonymity, but having come back, I love it when I go into someone, I see somebody that I know. So I feel the security is massive. I think
it's funny, isn't it, how you change when you get older?
And feeling as if you could go out anywhere by yourself, you wouldn't think twice about it.
Yeah.
I really enjoy the fresh air. I love it.
Having been in London so much.
Having been in London so much and Birmingham as well, I just think it's a beautiful, beautiful place. But I need to get off fairly frequently. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yep, get that. So what solutions and opportunities can you see? What would you do? What would you do? I mean, you are. I mean, people listening to this podcast will be amazed at, your career history and the calibre of people like you working for it. I mean, they should surely take some comfort in that. But
well, I hope so. But I feel that maybe the island ought to be reaching out to people like me who've returned to the island or have come over from the UK and actually find out who's living here and what they can offer.
Yeah.
And
a quiet life.
Yeah. Well, yeah. But there's plenty. When I first came back over here, I actually did go to speak to a few people about things that I could potentially do. Yes. And I got knocked back. Oh. And it was a little bit as if, no, we don't need you, thanks. Oh. And I wasn't obviously perturbed too much by that because I didn't take any notice.
But others might.
Yeah, but they might, exactly. And but I think there's massive talent over here, and maybe we don't necessarily use the opportunity and the talent. And you know, I think there's unfortunately a bit of a Manx trait, and I would say this as a Manx girl as you are, that there tends to be a bit of we don't need people from outside. And actually, I think we do need people from outside. And we should be
with outside experience,
celebrating
and
people who've done stuff in the UK and in the wider world, because it can be, we are still, you know, quite insular. So
can be.
We can be, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, okay. So, exciting things for you next then, if you get your way.
I'm intending that I'll be lecturing on this degree course. I can't wait for that. I'm hoping it really takes off.
Yeah.
What I'm hoping is that that police officers, because that's my particular, obviously my background, I hope that that police officers are encouraged to take part in that degree course, because from personal experience, I know how much it changed me, and I do look back and wonder, had I done that degree earlier on in my career, whether I'd have taken a different path. Even though I'm very happy with the path I took, I do wonder whether I'd have benefited from doing a degree earlier.
Well, if you wonder that, then it's got to be a great opportunity for any local officers here to further their own careers. It would be
But for social, if it's applied social science, it could be including probation officers, prison officers, police officers, firefighters, all people in public service. I think it would be a great opportunity.
Oh, fantastic! Well,
and
let's hope.
And obviously, I know you can hear my stories.
Yeah. Very good. So, just a few sort of fun questions to finish off on. What books, podcasts?
Right, books. I tend to be a lover of detective novels. Sadly,
really?
I know.
What's your favourite author? Then?
I'm reading a Quentin Jardine at the moment, and I love a bit of Michael Connolly, James Patterson, all of those.
They must be well written then, if you can.
Yeah, they're fab.
Yeah, because if there was too many holes in the plot, you wouldn't.
Well, no, and I follow. I love them, and that's my relaxation.
Right,
I love doing that.
Yeah,
in bed with a good
very
book.
good. You like Richard Osman? Yeah,
I haven't. I know. I could see that you talked about the Murder Club, and I haven't read any of his.
They're great fun.
I will need to do that.
Yeah. What, you've got favourite quote?
Yeah. I have. Now, this can apply to men and women. However, the quote that I've chosen is, "A woman of integrity doesn't compromise what she believes in simply in order to seek approval from others, nor does she let bad behaviour slide in order to fit in." And I would say that sums me up in the police and in my life, actually. Yeah, and it's by Matthew Hussey. But I like that.
It's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good way to live your life.
Yeah.
So where can people go to learn more about you?
Well, look me up on LinkedIn.
Okay.
Although I have to say I haven't said anything about I need to update that, actually.
That's the other thing on to-do list, book to buy, update your LinkedIn. Could you send me a link to your LinkedIn? We'll put it in the show notes for our listeners.
Yeah, okay.
Anywhere else that you're...
Well, and I published a piece. I'm quite into the whole menopause thing as well.
Okay, right.
And I wrote my dissertation, as I said, on the experience of police, exploring the experience of police women working through the menopause. And I've actually, there's a link to an article that I wrote, which is in a Policing Insight. It's on Policing Insight, which is a global website. And I talked about that. That was quite a proud moment, actually.
Yeah, having that published.
Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah. Well, we'll put links to those in the show notes, and people can reach out to you through those mediums if they want to be in touch. Great.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time, Carol Ann. It's been wonderful to listen to your story, which is it's got, I know what you said about school, but everything else has got high achiever written all over it. So
God,
thank you. Thanks very much.
Say that.
Thanks for listening this far. I hope you found this episode to be valuable. If so, I'd like to ask you for a small favour. Would you please go to Apple Podcasts and leave a 5-star review, because that's one of the best ways for others to find the series, and please send a link to the podcast to 3 friends or colleagues who know they'll find it helpful. That way we can spread the word about how great a place the Isle of Man is to live and work, and help spread some positivity. Thanks again for tuning in and being part of our great community. I'll see you next time. Island Influencers is a fortnightly podcast. Make sure you don't miss the next episode by clicking the follow button on your podcast platform. A big thanks to the producer Catherine Watts from Social Cues and editor Martin Bamford at Bear Content, and thank you for listening.